As you guys know, League has a bunch of skin universes with alternate versions of their champions. For each of these universes, their power levels alternate wildly. Sometimes a champion is super strong, and sometimes they're super weak. In this video, I'm going to talk about every Vladimir skin, including details, inspirations, references, and lore, and rank them from weakest to strongest. This video was requested by our bro Kavidas, who signed up at a Descendant member level. Much love, bro. Thanks for the support. But without further ado, let's go. Crystal Rose. This was Vladimir's first exclusive Wild Rift skin, and it came with a pretty generic theme. It's literally just Vladimir in a white suit. And the lore for this skin doesn't have anything crazy, it just talks about Vlad going to a party, and since this one is the only skin of his without any powers of any kind, he goes last. Cafe Cuties. The lore for this skin says that Vladimir found the elixir of life in tea, and now he's always trying to master tasseomancy, which is a tea leaf reading technique, also known as tasseography, where the reader interprets a bunch of images that show up in the tea leaves, and supposedly, the closer to the rim of the cup an image is, the more likely it is to happen, and that actually exists in real life, but it's just random pseudoscience from China. In this skin, Vlad is a butler, but since the Cafe Cuties skin are set in a maid and butler cafe universe, which is a type of place super popular in Asia, especially Japan, yeah, it's pretty safe to assume it's exactly what it looks like here. It's kind of weird, but whatever, bro, it's Japanese culture. Sometimes it's just like that. A cool detail is that each champion in this line has their own construct employee. Like Annie's Tibbers is a gummy bear butler, renamed to T-Bers, though she's the only one who actually summons their construct, while the others only show up in the recall animations. Vlad has a little cup that he holds the whole game, and it shows up in his recall. His cup's name is Matt Charlie, which is a mix of Charlie and matcha, which is that green tea powder. And most of the champions in this line are basically just champions in maid or butler outfits. But Vlad's skin has a cool twist. Instead of manipulating blood, he manipulates green tea. On his W, he becomes a puddle of boiling tea, and that's why it deals damage. It's such a great touch. Another small Easter egg says that in the Star Guardian universe, the Cafe Cuties place exists as a themed cafe, and the champions are the themes of the cafe's menu items. And Vladimir's nephew is mentioned in a novel as a character in a manga trying to save his wife from a matcha prison. So I think it's pretty clear who his nephew is. And yeah, since this one is just a Vladimir who manipulates tea instead of blood, his only damage is throwing tea on people, which definitely makes him pretty weak. Academy. This skin for Vlad is kind of weird. It's part of a skin line that Riot has mostly forgotten about that reimagines champions as high school students. But okay, that's not strange. That's fairly normal. What's really weird is that these skins show up in a splash art for Battle Academia Katarina at level 1 in Legends of Runeterra. If you look in the background, you can see Darius and Vladimir, but they aren't confirmed as students in any of the Battle Academia schools, just students from a school with no name. And these skins were even released near Halloween, so maybe the idea was just to have champions dressed as high schoolers. A little Easter egg is that on the classroom door it says 1337, which is a reference to an internet language that switches numbers from letters called leet, pronounced like elite, just to show that that squad in that room is elite. And it ranks ahead of Cafe Cuties Vladimir because this skin can control blood with hemomancy, but he's still younger and more inexperienced compared to the other versions, which is why we're ranking him a bit lower. Vandal. The lore for Vandal skins takes place in Mad Max-style dystopia, where a nuclear apocalypse turned the whole world into a wasteland, and everyone survives by being road-born criminals. Vlad is the leader of a gang called the Vandals, and because of the radiation, he gained the ability to control blood of living organisms. But instead of using that to heal everyone of every disease that exists, he'd rather go around causing chaos with the gang. And well, I put him ahead of Academy Vladimir because he's definitely more experienced, and he goes out causing chaos instead of just living a chosen life. Weather Entity. The last Wild Rift skin he has is called Weather Entity Vladimir, where he was a pioneer studying the spirits of the storms and thunders, until he ended up being corrupted by one of those spirits and turned into an abomination he is in this skin. And Vlad uses the power of Aatrox to channel thunder through his rain to cover the whole world in storms. And honestly, being a spirit that controls the weather, more specifically rain, he definitely has the potential to do crazy damage. Though I'm not going to consider him at max potential here in this video, because for that he needs Aatrox. This video is is just about Vlad, not Vlad and Aatrox. Still though, bro, Rain is pretty insane, right? Like, it's super strong, I don't know. Besides the fact that he's a spirit and not a physical being, normal attacks and regular stuff wouldn't affect him. That's why he's here. I believe that the next Vlads on the list have some method to easily affect and, I don't know, either control or destroy spirits. Besides the fact that honestly Rain isn't that powerful on its own. But before that, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and consider becoming a member. You get access to a bunch of cool perks like choosing video topics or watching videos early. Dark Waters. The Dark Water skin reimagines Vladimir like he's from Bilgewater, so he controls water instead of blood. The lore says that he was a medical student who saw that there was way more profit in taking lives than saving them. So now he uses his power as a wizard criminal. And well, I put him here ahead of Weather Entity Vladimir because he controls water and Weather Entity just makes rain. It's just controlling the rainwater, bro. There's no mystery to it. If Weather Entity could make thunder and stuff on its own, then sure, but he can't, he needs Aatrox for that. Broken Covenant. In the Broken Covenant skin universe, there's this energy called Aspira, the breath of life. And in this universe, there are entities called Neverghasts that consume Aspira like vampires, using it to live a long time. Broken Covenant Vladimir is a part of that line. On the flip side, there's an order called the Aspirants that fight the Neverghasts to preserve Aspira for the afterlife. And Vlad is the strongest Neverghast. He's the one who turned Rakan into a specter to bring more people into his cult and steal even more power from the Aspirants. The whole aesthetic of these skins is built around this stained glass church vibe and nuns, since the inspiration came from Warrior Nun, a Netflix series. And overall, the gothic fantastical look of these skins gives this really cool era of imposing power. The visuals on Broken Covenant Cho'Gath and Broken Covenant Nocturne, which are the only non-human champions in this skin line, give off major Dark Souls and Bloodborne vibes. And in this Vladimir skin, for some reason he doesn't manipulate liquids, he manipulates stained glass. And a cool detail is that in the background of this splash art, you can see characters from Legends of Runeterra Crimson Circle, which in this case are Ophelia and Kai, from the Crimson Awakener card. Now this skin line has a very niche kind of power scaling in its own lore, so it's kind of hard to compare to other lines. These Neverghasts basically seem like vampires. They suck life energy just like Vladimir does through Hemomancy, but unlike normal Vlad, instead of controlling blood, he controls stained glass, which honestly seems way less powerful than blood. Normal Vladimir can harden blood until it's sharp like glass, but this one, he can't do that with stained glass. And the reason I put him here ahead of Dark Waters Vladimir is because here he actually absorbs life energy and strengthens himself with it, while Dark Waters just messes with water. These two skins are canonical, meaning they're fully aligned with Runeterra lore and not part of any alternate skin universe. And I want to start talking about base Vladimir. Vlad has one of the simplest base designs in League, which makes sense, he's from 2010, and back then Riot wasn't exactly super innovative with character designs, but we have to agree that his base looks really weird. Not just because of the almost monochromatic red and white color palette, but also because of that whole over-the-top awkward outfit he's wearing. Especially those pants, man. They straight up look like clown pants or something. It's really not great. More recently, in Wild Rift, he got a redesign that makes him way more stylish and a mysterious identity. It honestly looks really cool. There's even a detail where the symbol on his chest resembles the symbol of Camivore, which is the kingdom Vlad originally came from. And yeah, the obvious inspiration for Vladimir is vampires, like Count Dracula, for example. I think everyone already knows that, and the name Vladimir comes from the historical Romanian figure that inspired pretty much all vampire stories we have today, Vlad III Dracula, also known as Vlad the Impaler. But his actual visual design doesn't really resemble that guy at all. He's basically just a generic vampire. Over time though, he's been shifting more and more towards the blood mage angle, with a more original aesthetic, especially in the more recent cinematics. Now power level wise, he's absolutely insane. Hemomancy is a form of magic that comes from the Darkin, which he learned from a Darkin himself, and later used to trap that Darkin and absorb it. After that, centuries and centuries passed, and Vladimir built a cult and grew stronger and stronger by absorbing more vitality. There's even a line in the lore that says during the first meeting between him and LeBlanc, they cast a spell so powerful that it caused everything around them to rot. So yeah, the dude is absurdly powerful. It's not just about Hemomancy, his magical knowledge in general is completely terrifying. Let's talk about a few of his canonical feats. Vlad's knowledge for Hemomancy meant that when Isolde got poisoned during the attack meant for Viego, he actually had the ability to cure her. During the book Realms of Runeterra, we see a story story showing Vlad on a ship examining arcane artifacts, and at one point, he actually faces Callista herself, who is basically Runeterra's ghostwriter. Vladimir manages to get around that by using one of the artifacts to banish her. This is kind of crazy since Callista's whole thing is that if she's summoned by someone to take revenge on you, she'll chase you to the ends of Runeterra. As for weaknesses, Vlad's most notable weakness is that he needs to feed on the essence of others to rejuvenate himself over time. There's even a Wild Rift animation showing him aged, stepping out of carriage, then absorbing the blood of the soldiers, draining the vitality from each one, and finally returning to his youthful appearance. Unfortunately, this draining also comes with a few pretty major drawbacks. Since he's lived for so many centuries, there comes to a point where, to learn new things, his brain needs to erase the old ones. That's why his residence is filled with books and records written by himself, as a way to immortalize his presence across different eras and always have a way to remember, or at least get close to remembering what he's done. With all that knowledge in mind, he keeps getting stronger without a real limit. And now, talking about the Mask of the Black Rose skin, like I said before, it's a canonical skin and shows him at the Black Rose Ball. That happens in the Welcome to Nexus cinematic from early 2025. That cinematic even led to Vladimir getting a small visual update a few months later, changing his face to look more like he did in the cinematic, and also giving him a slight resemblance to his Wild Rift look. And honestly, it's basically the same as base Vladimir, just wearing a mask. I'm putting him here because of that. Nosferatu. In this skin, Vlad is a reference to the first vampire in the history of cinema, from the German movie Nosferatu from 1922. It was the first adaptation of the reimagining of Dracula in another medium outside of books, bringing a completely new vision of the vampire, now with a much more horrifying and grotesque look. And honestly, the reason it's so different from the original is because they didn't have the copyrights, so it was basically a copyright-proof adaptation of the book. That's why the movie is called Nosferatu, which means vampire in Romanian, instead of something like Dracula or the vampire. And this version is extremely famous. It's not for nothing that it recently got a new movie retelling this story. And when Vlad eventually gets a visual rework, this skin will probably end up being closer to the 2024 version of Nosferatu, which was played by Bill Skarsgård. As for the appearance itself, there's not much going on. It's basically bald Vladimir. And the skin lore doesn't really say anything special either, other than the fact that it's part of those Halloween skins. And I put this skin ahead of the previous ones because this is where actual vampires start showing up, not just hemomancers. So I imagine on top of all of the blood manipulation and power Vlad normally has, here he also has the standard vampire abilities like mind control, shapeshifting, and stuff like that. Soul Stealer. This skin doesn't have any lore, and the only other skin in this theme is Soul Stealer Vane, where she was basically a monster hunter who got corrupted and now seeks the souls of everything and everyone. So you can imagine that in this skin, Vlad is also someone who steals souls. He even has this thing in his hand that resembles the Thresh's lantern, almost like a Shadow Isles version of Vladimir. And the reason I put him here is because the soul is something way more powerful and vital than blood. Normal canon Vladimir wouldn't stand a chance against the major soul manipulators like Mordekaiser or Thresh. So I'm basically placing him as if he's on that level, and not like some extra vampire powers like the one Nosferatu has. It would be enough to balance out that massive gap. Count. This one is just a black recolor of the base skin, like most skins from 2010. It's a part of a small universe called Storybook, where champions reference famous characters and stories from classic books. And this skin is a direct reference to Dracula by Bram Stoker from 1897. The lore says that he's a lonely count who lives in a castle, and every night he would terrorize nearby villages to satisfy his thirst for blood. And that's basically it. It's a very obvious reference to Count Dracula from Bram Stoker's original book, which is the single most influential vampire story of all time. And as a representation of Dracula, this is a definite vampire. The thing is, when you actually take Bram Stoker's version into account, Dracula really isn't that powerful compared to other vampires. In the book, it said that he has the strength of 20 men. Dude, that's honestly not that impressive. If you look it up, a gorilla ranges from like 4 to 15 men in terms of raw strength. So yeah, obviously Vladimir's focus isn't raw strength anyway, so who knows how much stronger he is than a bunch of men. But it's not like Dracula had a bunch of insanely broken powers to make up for it either. The whole thing was a romance novel, not an action book full of fights and absurd power scaling. On top of that, he had a ton of weaknesses. He got wrecked by holy symbols, he got wrecked by garlic, he had to sleep in a coffin with the soil from his homeland, he had to be invited to enter places, he didn't instantly die in sunlight, but he did get weaker in it. Meanwhile, Vlad's weaknesses aren't nearly as significant. Marquis. This skin is also a reimagining of Vlad inspired by another famous vampire, and in this case there are two possible inspirations. One of them is Lestat de Loncourt from the book Interview with the Vampire, that elegant blonde vampire with that high society look, and the other one would be Alucard from Castlevania, but it's definitely Lestat since he's a Marquis, and he's also way more iconic, let's say to vampire culture than Castlevania's Alucard. Even though, honestly, Alucard is way cooler. The skin doesn't really have much lore. It just talks about a ball and nothing too special. It's a very old skin and kind of whatever. But even though Dracula is considered the king of vampires, Lestat ends up being way more powerful than him. In the Vampire Chronicles, the first vampire in existence wasn't Dracula. It was Akasha. And when Lestat drank her blood, he basically became a god. He gained telekinesis, pyromancy, gravity manipulation. He can stay in direct contact with the sun with no problem at all. On top of all his basic vampire powers were massively enhanced. Bloodlord. This skin is a part of a Hemomancer-themed universe, which is a small skin universe based around the blood-focused aesthetic with the dark gothic vibe, and he's the leader of the Bloodstone cult. Bloodstone is the English name used for skins, which refers to a type of stone with a blood-like splattered pattern. In this universe, Bloodstone is an entity or material that grants abilities and powers at a very high cost. Vlad is the leader of the cult, and after taking part in a massive ritual that cost lives of many people, he received immense power and basically became either an extremely powerful vampire or a demon. This is also one of the oldest legendary skins in the game, which is why it doesn't have a very deep lore or super interesting theme, but it still has some cool little details. It's a decent skin. If Vlad ever got a full rework, this skin would go insanely hard, especially being legendary. And I put Bloodlord Vladimir ahead of the Vladimir inspired by Lestat, which is Marquis Vladimir, because here he's way more focused on combat. Lestat, even though he has a ton of powers, leans more towards manipulation than raw power. This Vladimir, from what we can tell, is much closer to something like Dracula from Castlevania. He has almost demonic powers instead of just vampiric ones. Meanwhile, Lestat, despite being extremely powerful, isn't really about raw, concentrated magic being thrown straight at you. He's more about the manipulation and stuff like that, which is still very strong, just not enough to deal with the Bloodlord. Nightbringer. Look, honestly, I don't find anything interesting about the skin design, and the Dawnbringer and Nightbringer skins usually get more and more generic over time, with the exception of the legendaries. But this one for Vlad has literally nothing special going on visually. Even in the lore, it barely says anything. It just says that he's the king of night and the personification of uncertainty, and that he feeds on the vital essence of mortals. That's it. But still, this is where he gets a massive jump in power compared to the previous skins. That's because the Dawnbringer and Nightbringer universe is made up of beings that can destroy planets. Vlad specifically may not be as powerful as some of the other emissaries, like Yasuo, who is insanely stronger, and that is absurdly and infinitely stronger than anything we've mentioned before. This version of Vlad would easily beat every other one on this list at once, except for Cosmic Devourer. As a member of the Cosmic Court, Vladimir is an arrogant celestial being who drinks the essence of dead worlds to give life to worlds that are dying. And in the skin description, it also says that recently his hunger has been growing, which might be hinting at a new Vlad skin in the Darkstar universe, or in his case, something closer to the dark cosmic side. That's because he shows small signs of corruption in his eye, and also because he's literally holding a black hole in his hands. On top of that, in his recall animation, he's being covered by dark energy. And speaking of the recall, it shows a constellation called Eridanus, also known as the River, which is a long, curved constellation. And Eridanus is also the name of the river that crosses the underworld in Greek mythology. And Vlad even has a voice line referencing to this.
The rivers will run red.
So it all follows this idea of a cosmic river. And this is without a doubt the most powerful Vlad. He treats entire planets as his food and absorbs their essence with zero effort, on top of having all of the cosmic abilities that the other skins in this universe also have. So yeah, no question about it, he takes first place. And that's basically it. I'll see you guys in the next video.